everyone, and welcome to Tabor Talk. I'm your host, Michael Tabor. So, my last couple of videos, last couple of days, I brought Tabor Talk inside. I did one in my basement, my unfinished basement, and I did one in the kitchen living room area. And it's such a beautiful fall day. My goodness, Saturday morning, October 19th, and a nice crisp day here in the Catskills. So, getting right into this. A couple of months ago, I posted a video. I talked about my NDE, my near-death experience. For people who haven't seen it, I had an accident 2014. I fell from an embankment 23 feet, landed on my buttock, and I died. I didn't die at the scene. I died in the hospital, and I had an NDE, a near-death experience. I'm not going to talk about details. Go to my channel, look at the videos. I've done at least probably a dozen videos on my NDE. Okay, so it's there. So anyway, and by the way, my first NDE, I'm really like 6,800 views and hundreds of comments. So it's really, really, really interesting. So this one comment here by this really wonderful person, her YouTube name is Violet Soul. I'm just going to read this to you, and then I'll get into what I want to talk about. Okay, so she says, I noticed that you uploaded this this year, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for having the bravery to post this. I really needed to hear from someone else who also did not have a happy or good near-death experience. And like you, I'm also a kind and gentle soul, to the point where I'm the bottom socially always being picked on. Okay. I'm not really, there's a little typo here, but don't worry about that. So I still wonder to this day, why in the world I've had so many terrible near-death experiences. Why would I be punished? I finally figured out that God must be a terrible bully and takes delight only in torture. Cruelty, torture, and all this. All right. So by the way, my near-death experience, today, I am so happy that I had it. At the time, I thought it was awful. It was unpleasant. I didn't understand it. But 5 years later, I processed this. I stepped back, and I am so happy that I had this experience. So at the time, I thought it was terrible and unpleasant. Now, I feel I'm so incredibly fortunate that this happened. And now I see things clearly, right? Okay. So anyway, I want to go back to Violet's Souls. And I responded, I said, thank you. I said, you're a beautiful person in my book. Who cares what the bully thinks? All right. And then she responded again. She said, thank you very much. I truly and deeply wish for God to exist and that she, he, it be as nice and accepting as me and you. All right. So there you go. So this is a good segue into what I want to talk about for a couple of minutes here is the problem of evil, wickedness in the world, and suffering, pain, suffering, misery, and cruelty and evil is in this world is incompatible with an omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, omnibenevolent God, all loving, all powerful, all present, all knowing, whatever God. And evil exists. Something's wrong. We're not looking at reality the right way, or something. Our definition of what God is incorrect. There's something wrong. I have done a couple of videos on this guy. He's a Christian apologist, theologian. He's written many books. His name is Alvin Plantinga. When I was very sick back 2014, I'm not going to talk about my illness, but I have a serious chronic illness, a neuromuscular issue, and I thought I was dying, and I had this awful person who's this crazy, unstable, mentally ill, Orthodox Christian who suggested two things that almost destroyed me. He said, read Alvin Plantinga, The Problem of Evil, and read the Book of Job, right? And those, if someone's sick, those two things, stay away like the plague. Alvin Plantinga is one of the worst, kookiest, most irrational, illogical piece of garbage ever. I actually threw it away. My wife took it, ripped it up, and threw it away because this Alvin Plantinga is a piece of fucking shit. He thinks he's good, but he's not. And the Book of Job, I've actually done a couple of video recordings on the Book of Job, and really good. I love the book. I think it's interesting, but God is a bully in that book. It's, you know, right? He has a bet with Satan, and a good person, Job, suffers. There you go. So, okay. Now, what I want to talk about is recently I have my library picked up, I started reading again Voltaire's Candide, right? Classic. I read it when I was a young man in my 20s and my 30s. I'm just thumbing through it. It's short, small book. And I have this here. This big, fat, thick book is really just a critical evaluation of the great works. And I'm looking at Voltaire's Candide. And let me just open this up. So, as we know, people who've read Voltaire's Candide, this is written, let's see, the author, Candide lived in 17th century, 1694 to 1778, social satire, time of plot, 18th century, and here we go. So, the most popular of Voltaire's works is a masterful satire on the follies and vices of men, particularly of the belief embodied by Pangloss that all is for the best in this best of all possible worlds. Let me say that again. All is for the best in the best of all possible worlds. Okay, so the author is like this naive guy. He's a gentle, honest, and pleasant young man. And he goes through life and he sees all these horrible disasters and plague and earthquake and death and cruelty and horror, people being burnt at the stake for not believing, and then he becomes more cynical or hardened. And at the end, he lives on a farm. You got to read the book. If you haven't read the book, my God, one of my favorite classics of all time. So, what I want to read here is, what do you make of this? How can there be an all-powerful God and all this and that, and when you have all this horror, right? Let me just say this. I say this all the time, but it's true. 9 million children die every year in terror and agony. Look at the number. Worldwide, 9 million children before they reach the age of 5. Starvation, horrible disease, right? The argument might say, well, it's man, he fucked up somehow, and an innocent child, children born with no eyes, no limbs, these horrible diseases, their distended bellies, dying of starvation. You're going to say, oh, you deserve it, fucking kid. 2-year-old, you deserve to have leukemia. Die. It's just bullshit. And then you can go back to original sin, and that's totally preposterous, because Adam and Eve, they were disobedient, and Eve ate the apple and forced. Listen, people, fucking grow up, all right? But anyway, I want to talk about. Some people will say there's so many different philosophies and ideas that you look at the big picture. Like, it seems horrible and awful as this finite time, right? Even if you live to 100 years, that's nothing. Like, compared, the age of the universe is what, 13.8 billion years old. I mean, it's, and I understand the argument, like maybe it's just like a millionth of a second in God time, you know what I mean? So here's what Alexander Pope has to say, 1710. This is a great little, I'm just going to read this, but I just want to show you this little. Oh my goodness, all right, you see that poem? I'm just going to read this. Alexander Pope says, we're not looking at things right. He says, all nature is but art, unknown to thee. All chance direction which thou canst not see. All discord harmony not understood. All partial evil, universal good. And in spite of pride in in spite of pride and erring reason's spite, one truth is clear: whatever is right. Isn't that beautiful? One more time. All nature is but art, unknown to thee. All chance direction which thou canst not see. All discord harmony not understood. All partial evil, universal good. And in spite of pride and erring reason's spite, one truth is clear: whatever is is right. Okay, so you have also there's another guy, a famous philosopher, Leibniz. All right, Leibniz also was optimistic in all this. So the problem of evil. I'm at 10 minutes. I think I'll leave it at there. So let me just fade out with don't read Plantinga. He's a dick. He's a douchebag. I can't stand the guy. The Book of Job is rough. Read it for literature, for its literary value and all that, and it is interesting. But if you have a sickness and you're trying to understand why there's cruelty and torture and horror, I don't recommend it. Okay, so on that note, oh, and of course, read Voltaire's Candide, the best of all possible worlds. So what's the actual quote? Let me read that again. I love it so much. Okay. All is for the best in this best of all possible worlds. All is for the best in this best of all possible worlds. Okay. Good friends, good books, and a sleepy conscience. Peace, love, and understanding here on Tabor Talk. What a beautiful fall day. Okay.